No, but they are all broken.
But I like the broken one.
Okay, so then you can use it. Whoever wants this can use it.
Because the top one, if you start writing, it breaks.
These are not actually restless. They are semi-restless.
It's 9. Okay, let's start. So today in 1.5 hours, I will take the one class of control diffusion which is non-degenerate, and this has beautiful properties as opposed to the degenerate case, which is technically much harder. And this theory is to a large extent done. There are problems which are still left to be done, but at least the complete observation part, when xt is known to the controller, many things have already been done. So this theory is quite rich. So here we are making an assumption, standard assumption on B, like local ellipses with linear growth or ellipses, and here I have the ellipses continuous, ellipses, local ellipses, etc. But one assumptions that will be there, because it's a non-degenerate case, that sigma star, that is the matrix, the ATX sigma Tx, the transpose, this is uniformly parabolic. So it's a non-negative symmetric matrix, but I assume that it is uniformly positive definite, so to speak, or it's called uniformly parabolic. The eigenvalues are positive, just not positive, they have a lower bound with respect to this. So that is the case. This case is called non-degenerate diffusion. Now this case has many properties, somewhat surprising. If you are thinking in terms of deterministic way, then it is surprising. Take a feedback control. Suppose ut is basically some function u. I am again denoting it by u with an abuse of notation. Suppose this is some this. It's called a feedback control, where u is a function. You can call it u bar if you like. If you like, you call it u bar. Now, then the stochastic differential equation becomes d of xt equal to b of t xt u bar of t x, the entire trajectory, dt plus sigma t xt dw. Now, if you forget about this part,
What is the entire trajectory? Can it be just the integral of 0 to t xs ds?
the entire so u bar is a function from c. So u bar is a function from 0 to t times C Rd to u. So what we are taking is the, you can take the integral for example. Yeah. So this is the entire, some function of the entire trajectory. Okay. So therefore, now if you think of, if the noise is not there, there is no way you can prove the solution of this equation. Just imagine this equation without this, and there is no way you can find any solutions whatsoever. You know, maybe in some very, very generalized sense you can, but in general you won't be able to find any solutions. But thanks to the non-degeneracy property, that means the noise is getting, the noise is just not changing it, the trajectory, it is changing uniformly. In every direction there is a noise, and if there is a noise, then we can show that this has a unique weak solution. This has a unique weak solution. So the trick is what is called Girjanov's theorem. So I would just sketch the, in 1.5 hours I can't do much. So let me give a sketch of how we can prove that this equation has a weak solution. Now
So what is the weak solution?
weak solution means only this structure is given to us. Only this structure is given to us, right? We have to have a probability space, we have to have a Brownian motion such that this equation is valid on that. So nothing is given to us except this structure, and then we fit everything. So that is called weak solution. And weak uniqueness means if there are two solutions may be defined on two different probability spaces, then their laws are the same. So we identify a stochastic process not as with respect to sample paths, but a stochastic process is identified with respect to its distribution. So the two weak solutions are said to be the same if their laws are the same. So weak uniqueness means it has a weak solution and the law of the process is unique. So let me, without giving a proof, let me give you the basic idea and then you can work out the proof, how to prove that this has a weak solution. Now it has a unique weak solution. So you start with this. The basic problem comes from this term, right? This term is the problematic term where you won't be able to do any iteration because this is a measurable function and this depends on the trajectory. So ignore that term. Consider this equation with respect to some Brownian motion. Take any Brownian motion if you want. With respect to, you take a Brownian motion and do this. Now this has a unique strong solution because I have taken sigma to be, right? I have taken sigma to be ellipsis continuous, so there is absolutely no problem in iterative method. This has a unique strong solution. So take some probability space, some winner process and consider this equation. On that probability space, with respect to that winner process, it has a unique strong solution. Now by brute force you put it into this way. I just by brute force write it this way. Write this is equal to Bt xt u bar of t don't change sigma. without changing the sigma. So obviously this can't be, this will be some other, right? Write it like this. Write it like this. So dWt is some process, right? Okay, what is dWt? dWt will be so these two are equal. So I am giving you the, so these two are equal. So therefore Wt is going to be equal to Wt is going to be equal to Wt minus 0 to t sigma inverse ext dt xt u bar of I should write S here. Is that correct? Just equate the two. Is correct? So basically W bar of T is a stochastic process. And what kind of a stochastic process it is? This is the Brownian motion, and I am perturbing the Brownian motion by a continuous function. Remember, the perturbation is this function is a continuous function, continuous with respect to t, right? So it's a continuous stochastic process. So what I have done is I have perturbed the Brownian motion by another continuous process. That continuity is important. Now if you perturb this, then with respect to, so I have this, initially I had this and this. So W is a Brownian motion with respect to P. So W tilde cannot be Brownian motion with respect to P. It just cannot be Brownian motion with respect to P. But I can use the Radon-Nikodym derivative. Suppose I can find a probability space such that W tilde is a Brownian motion. Suppose I can twist this measure and find out some measure P tilde such that W tilde is a Brownian motion, standard Wiener process, then my job is done, right? Because you look at this, xt satisfies this, which is the same as this. I have just cooked up another process W tilde t, but if I can make this a Brownian motion, then I have this structure, right? So all it needs is to change the probability measure, and if you want to change the probability measure, define W tilde over dp given ft as exponential 0 to t sigma inverse S xs bs xs u bar S dws minus half 0 to t. So call this curly bracket. Let me call this as a curly bracket. So whatever there in the curly bracket, exponential. This last bracket is for exponential. Now consider this probability measure. Now you can show that with respect to P tilde, W tilde is a standard Brownian motion. This is called Girsanov's theorem. there is a Girsanov's theorem. Girsanov's theorem tells you that with respect to P tilde, W tilde is a Brownian motion, standard Brownian motion. If it is a standard Brownian motion, now look at this equation. It satisfies the structure, right? Weak solution means on some probability space, this structure must be satisfied where this is a Brownian motion, and I have done that. So, whenever you do that, the trick is don't change sigma, never change sigma and do the trick. And this has a tremendous applications in mathematical finance, because in mathematical finance this is the major tool. Whatever I am doing is the core of mathematical finance. There is a something called risk neutral pricing, okay, and this is the core, this technique. So, the technique has to be how one does it. I start with something which I know has a strong solution. Then I change the structure and create a new stochastic process, but just by adding, subtracting, multiplying, doing something. And then I know that this is not a Brownian motion with respect to the one that I started with. I change the measure and make it a Brownian motion. And it is possible because this is continuous. This is a continuous stochastic process, and a Brownian motion is perturbed by that. Then this is what is the gist of this. There has to be. There has to be. That's why I have, that's why this is ellipsis continuous and so on. The point is, this process has to be integrable, right? So, there are things that I am hiding because this process has to be a martingale. This lambda t, the Radon-Nikodym derivative must be a martingale. Okay, so and with expectation equal to 1, and therefore this stochastic process must have finite expectation. And to do that, you have to do something called Novikov's condition and so on. So, all that I have hidden, but if the, for example, if B and sigma are bounded, there is absolutely no problem. If B and sigma are unbounded, then you need at least linear growth on them to check that the expectation is finite. And if the expectation is finite, you can prove that the expectation will be equal to 1. And that will give, this has to be a martingale. That is how you can consistently increase from Ft to P tilde on this. So, those are things, those are the technical details of Girsanov's theorem, but this is the basic fact that I can make it into a, therefore, under, and now weakness, uniqueness follows, because this has a unique strong solution, and therefore, since from here to here you can go back and forth. Remember this Radon-Nikodym derivative, okay. This P tilde that you are coming, P tilde and P will be mutually absolutely continuous with respect to each other, and therefore dP over dP tilde will also be positive, and therefore you can go from this to this back and forth, both ways you can go, and therefore since this has a strong uniqueness, this will give you weak uniqueness. The law must be the same. If you have one more solutions, you can go back to this solution from that solution and claim that the law will be unique. So, this is the gist. Now, if you want to write the actual proof, it will be a 4-5 pages proof.
What is the motivation? Can you see that why you get this?
The point is, if you want to see the motivation, then
Formally,
formally I am telling you the motivation is that you take the Brownian motion. Brownian motion, did I write the space somewhere? Brownian motion is basically takes values here. So, law of the Brownian motion is Wiener process, Wiener measure. Now, Wiener measure is not translation invariant, right? Take the Brownian motion, the sample paths are here, and if you treat Brownian motion as a stochastic process, the law of Brownian motion on this space is the Wiener measure. And if you take the Wiener measure and then take the canonical canonical process, that will be a Brownian motion. Now, this Wiener measure is not translation invariant. So, you take a process and translate it, then this process, okay, and the original one are not the same. So, if you take the translated one and compute its law, its Radon-Nikodym derivative is of that exponential type.
Translation in time?
Translation in that. So, if you have the xt and you translate it by, with respect to, it has to be not by a constant, but some mu of t. If you translate it, then this x tilde of t, okay, then consider the law of x tilde of t with respect to the Wiener measure, that will have this exponential. And if you want to see why this happens, just you take the Brownian motion is when you take the multivariate Gaussian distribution and then you take that extension, that is the Brownian motion. Now, you do the experiment with respect to multivariate Gaussian distribution, try translating multivariate Gaussian distribution and see what happens, you will get this kind of a. So, this
what is there in the previous expression.
Right. So, if you translate this Radon, the exponential form of the Radon-Nikodym derivative comes from the Gaussian distribution. So, this is the form, I mean this is not just some magic. If you start doing experimentation with Gaussian distribution, you will see that exponential form. Right. So, this is the exponential form and therefore, this is the Radon-Nikodym derivative. Using Radon-Nikodym theorem, Radon-Nikodym derivative, this is called Girsanov's theorem, I can prove the existence of weak solution. But I will do something more, that is even more different from this. This people believed for a long time, this was the benchmark, since as I said repeatedly in stochastic control problem, it is not the trajectories which are important, but it is the law that is important. Therefore, we are happy with weak solutions. But suppose I have ut is this particular form, so it is called Markov control. Now, you put this. Now, this is a look at this stochastic differential equation. If you forget about this, u bar is only a measurable function of t and x, and therefore, no matter how smooth b is, the resultant function is a measurable function. And with respect to this measurable function, under those hypotheses that sigma is ellipses and b is measurable with linear growth, at most linear growth, it has a unique solution. It has a unique strong solution. And let me give you a proof of that. Okay. So, first I assume that B is bounded. Let me give the proof for B bounded. Bounded to unbounded is done by bounded approximation. Assume that B is bounded. And I will prove that this has a unique strong solution. That means I will not even change the Brownian motion. On the same probability space, I will prove the existence of a strong solution. So, let us do the trick. So, let us write down L is equal to half Aij Tx del 2 over del x del j ij plus Pi Tx u bar Tx del over del xi. So, this is my basic operator L. This is my basic operator L. It is a second order parabolic operator with first term by my first order term, this term, the first order, these are measurable. But that does not create much problem while solving a PDE. Now, consider the following PDE. I am giving a very brief sketch of that. Del psi over del t plus L psi equal to 0 on 0 t cross Rd and psi t x capital T equal to xi. Now you can show that this has a unique solution in an appropriate space, in appropriate Sobolev space with appropriate growth condition. I am not getting into that. Then I have to bring in Sobolev spaces, growth condition and so on. If you already know, then it will have a unique solution in W2P log, W1 2P log and the growth will be not faster than Ex square. It has a unique, this Cauchy problem has a unique solution in that space. Now you define this psi of Tx as the vector psi 1 of Tx, psi d of Tx, this column vector. Capital psi Tx is this column vector. Now you can prove the following: for each t psi t dot R2 to Rd to Rd is a C2 diffeomorphism, is a C2 diffeomorphism. Now if it is a C2 diffeomorphism, then you take the following: yt equal to psi t xt. Then you use Ito's formula dyt. Dyt will have a dt term and this will have some diffusion term. Now because of this Cauchy problem, I have set it in a manner that I have removed the drift completely. I did remove the, in the Girzanov's theorem also I removed the drift, but in the process of removing the drift I had to change the probability measure. I had to change the Brownian motion. But here I haven't changed the probability measure, I haven't changed the Brownian motion, I have changed the process. I have created a new process yt which is psi of txt, and now look at this equation. This equation has a unique strong solution because I have this sigma tilde that sigma.
How did you drift term vanishes?
Because of this.
But where is the drift? L is what? Oh, L is okay.
Drift term will vanish. That is how the whole thing is. It's a reverse engineering. I wanted to remove the drift, so I did this, and I have removed the drift. Now I have dyt. Dyt has a unique strong this equation has a unique strong solution, and then I take the reverse flow. Then the reverse flow, because of the diffeomorphic property, this will be satisfied. So I will take the reverse flow and this will be satisfied. This is again a very long proof, but this is the brief sketch. So for bounded, this was done by Veretinnikov long back. You know, he wrote the paper I think in 78 or 79, and it was translated into English in that probability theory and applications by Siam, probably 1980. But it didn't really percolate much, you know, in the West. When we started writing papers in the 87, 88, claiming that this has a unique strong solution and referred to the Veretinnikov's paper, the paper will invariably get rejected on this ground that it cannot have a strong solution, and therefore you have done something wrong. But we are referring to a work which is published and published also in English, but it took quite some time and quite a bit of struggle. You know, for 2-3 years we struggled, but finally convinced people that this is the case. It's not our work. This is a work by Veretinnikov, and finally people have accepted that this is possible. It's a very, very unusual theorem that you can really prove a strong solution, and the whole technique comes from PDE. So PDE is almost indispensable in stochastic calculus. What I have done is, this is a stochastic differential equation with measurable drift. The flow is C2 diffeomorphism. That means it's 1 1 on 2, right? And its inverse is also naturally 1 1 on 2, that part is that, but it is C2. Yeah, so you can prove all that. That proof, that's why I said this is a long proof. This is not a short proof. This is the sketch of that. So it's a long paper by Veretinnikov. The paper is quite long. But for if the coefficients are bounded, you can prove this. Using that, you are removing the drift. Otherwise, crucial thing is non-degeneracy. So it's a diffusion equation. It's a uniformly it's a Cauchy problem for uniformly parabolic equation. That is the crux. If there is degeneracy, then this Cauchy problem is hard. And remember, Cauchy problem with unbounded coefficients is a very difficult problem. I think it's still open. If the coefficients are unbounded, I don't know how to handle it. So therefore, this is true only when Bi and sigma are bounded. B and sigma are bounded. Then this technique works. Then you can prove the existence of a strong solution. Recently, if B and sigma are unbounded, then by taking a bounded approximation, that is replacing B by Bn and sigma by sigma n, you can prove an Xn, and then since it's a strong solution, if we are not changing the probability space, nor we are changing the Wiener process, by taking the limit of that, we have been able to prove that even under a linear growth here, this has a unique strong solution. So that we have published in a monograph recently. Last year we published a monograph in which we did this, that even for linear growth it's possible. It's a very strong solution. This doesn't make sense. Without sigma, you can't think of a solution, but with sigma, there is a solution. And then if you think in terms of PD, if you are thinking in terms of PD, it's very clear. Suppose there is a degeneracy here, then this is a degenerate parabolic equation. Degenerate parabolic equation need not have smooth solution, but because your problem is uniformly parabolic, you have a smooth solution because of the diffusive effect of that Aij. Aij, if it is non-degenerate, that means in every direction there is diffusion. In every direction there is a diffusion. So if the trajectories come very close to each other, and there is a possibility of the two trajectories coming from two different points hitting each other, it's the diffusive force that will separate them immediately, and trajectories coming from two different points cannot hit each other. And this is why the diffusive force here, this is the PD version of this. That means you are looking at the stochastic process from Kolmogorov's perspective, or what is called the Fokker-Planck and things like that. Now if you come to the Ito's level, it's the same. If you have sigma, you have a strong solution.
You are assuming that sigma tilde is Lipschitz continuous.
Sigma tilde will be Lipschitz continuous. If sigma is Lipschitz continuous, because of the smoothness properties of the flow. So here sigma tilde will have a complicated expression in terms of its Jacobian and so on, but one can prove that sigma tilde will be Lipschitz continuous because of the properties of the flow. So if sigma is Lipschitz continuous, sigma tilde will remain Lipschitz continuous. So these are things. So by adding a non-trivial noise, non-trivial means non-degenerate noise, you can do many things. You can, if there is no solutions, you can create solutions, right? If suppose this system of, suppose this is an ODE which is unstable, solutions exist but the solution is unstable, you can add a noise and stabilize it. So using noise you can do many things. If you want to do a practical demonstration, try holding a chalk. It is not unstable, okay? If you try holding, I can't even hold it, but this is unstable, right? Start shaking your hand. If you practice it, you can hold a chalk with a shaky hand, but you can't hold a chalk with a steady hand, right? So this is what the noise does. So if you add noise, many things can happen. So the noise is generally treated as a derogatory word, but noise is beautiful. In fact, we have made a career out of noise. So now that so if this is the case and with non-degenerate properties, here is the HJB equation. HJB equation is the following. So I take Vt of x is infimum expected value so this is my Vt of x. Then the HJB equation is half Aij Tx del to phi over Ij plus infimum u Pi Txu over I equal to 0, and naturally this pi capital T Tx. So this is the HJB equation. Now here, first of all, relaxation is not needed, and second thing is that the dynamic programming, you can only use the heuristics to derive this equation, and once you are in this domain, dphi by dt, thank you. This will be parabolic. So you don't really need any dynamic, the proof of the dynamic programming principle, though it's true, but you don't need them. The reason is that this equation, now let me make some further assumption. Assume a C and G bounded. C and G bounded. That means what are the properties that I am assuming? C is ellipsis continuous, of course. G is continuous, and I am further making an assumption that C and G are bounded. If that is the case, then theorem is that star has a unique solution in C12 star has a unique solution. That's the PD result. Star has a unique solution in this class. Of course, if you want to prove it, if you are familiar with PD, then it's different. The proof is doesn't come so easily. You have to set up the proof in appropriate Sobolev spaces, or maybe Helder. Helder will not work. Probably Sobolev will be better. You have to pose the problem in appropriate Sobolev spaces, whether it can go from one to the other, and then use Schroeder's fixed point theorem and some a priori estimates and so on, the standard trick in PD. And using Schroeder's fixed point theorem, you will prove the existence of a solution, and then you will use maximum principle to prove the uniqueness of a solution, in some Sobolev space, and then you will use bootstrap parabolic regularity to get this. We can get more regularity also, as Adimurthy was telling. It can be 1 plus gamma over 2 plus 2 over 2 plus gamma, where gamma is any quantity less than 1, if we assume Lipschitz continuity. Now, once anyway, we are concerned with a smooth solution. 1, 2 is enough for us. Now, if you have, now I know that the PDE has a unique solution. Now, if I know that the PDE has a unique solution, then I use Ito's formula to this and immediately prove that a consequence will be phi t of x using Ito by Ito's formula. Phi t of x will be equal to Vt of x. As a consequence, there are many consequences. First of all, Vtx becomes C12. So, the value function which I didn't know anything about any regularity properties of the value function suddenly comes out to be C12. And the unique solution of that parabolic equation becomes Vt of x. So, this is just a simple formula by Ito's formula. Now, this is C and G are bounded is a very restrictive condition. Now, if you have some growth conditions on C and G, then you have to modify this spaces with appropriate growth. For example, if up to quadratic growth, there will be no problem. C and G having quadratic growth can also be managed. You will have to have C12 with polynomial growths. In the space of C12 functions with polynomial growth, one can prove that this equation has a unique solution. Therefore, we can allow up to quadratic growth, but this will not be the space. The space will be C12 with appropriate growths. In fact, you have to start working with weighted Sobolev spaces. Depending on the growth conditions, you have to take weighted Sobolev spaces, you have to work in weighted Sobolev spaces, and again you have to use parabolic regularity in weighted Sobolev spaces and get the unique solution. So, certain B and sigma linear growth, but C we can allow quadratic growth. Up to quadratic growth we can allow. Beyond quadratic may be possible, I don't know. Yeah?
Suppose you put an epsilon instead of the noise.
Here?
Epsilon.
Epsilon.
Then you get a viscosity here becomes epsilon. Epsilon by 2 is. Now what happens when epsilon is 0?
Then it's a singularity.
But see, normally it converges the Hamilton-Jacobi equation. This is one. Can you say something about paths?
It's a singular one. The limit. So paths we don't really. One can get a solution.
How will you get it for the Hamilton-Jacobi?
Even the
Filipov,
That solution will converge to Filipov, no?
So there is a concept of Filipov.
There is a concept of Filipov concept is there for ODE,
Yes.
and this will converge to the Filipov.
But we will interpret as actually this, treat the ODE as an SD and look at the solution.
Look at the solution.
But there is a paper in 2007
This is how in
Filipov in the deterministic sense.
Yes. And the tightness is possible.
Huh?
See here, what you do is actually you get X epsilon.
Okay.
So that law will be tight because
For
assume that
tightness
they are
coming
bounded.
to-
one can show that the law is tight.
Therefore, then you look at
So there is a stochastic process, but that stochastic process will become deterministic, and that will be the Filipov solution.
exactly will be seeing it as an SD rather than as a.
So you see it as a stochastic process, but basically it's not a stochastic process. So one can do perturbation, but the point is that's one solution.
No, the limit.
You have to view it as a stochastic process. As I said, if you have
Dirac at the path, Dirac at x small x dot. So you will be interpreting in that way. But later,
What happens with the probabilistic variable?
See, probabilistic variable, what happens is, if you put an epsilon, there will be x epsilon,
Right.
and you can prove that x epsilon are tight. Once they are tight, there is a Prohorov theorem, then they are relatively compact. So, along a subsequence, it converges to a stochastic process in law, right. So, in law, then on a augmented probability space, you can assume without generality, without loss of any generality, that it's almost sure. So, in that sense, you get a stochastic process. Now, that stochastic process, as he is saying, can be identified with the Filipov solutions in the usual sense. So, in that sense, that stochastic process, law will be a Dirac measure.
These are related to large deviations in small asymptotics.
Yeah, that you can,
Square root of epsilon, then
you can probably do that
you
also.
can find the rate function and so on. Yes.
How does the no, I didn't understand. How do you get it?
That
Square root of epsilon sigma and then
How would the measure, associated measure also will depend on the epsilon
Yes,
parameter, right?
exactly.
So then we have to talk about the convergence of those measures.
This is the tightness.
Yes,
right?
yeah, we have to show that the measures are tight in appropriate spaces.
now, so far what I have done is totally abstract. Let me just quickly solve one problem where this is possible. To get a smooth solution is possible. So, remember, now to complete the theorem, no, my theorem is not complete. Now, suppose u bar is such that, or u star is such that pi tx u star tx del vi over del xi I plus Ctx u star of Tx is equal to infimum u
Ghosh,
Ah.
just I mean, sorry to.
Ah.
I want to know. So, C, Vi and C are you assuming the regular functions, right?
ellipsis continuous. You can go to Helder also, but
You don't assume any discontinuities there. I mean,
no, they are continuous functions. Continuous in all three variables and ellipsis here. They are not discontinuous. I assume that B and sigma are continuous function, and with respect to the second variable, they are uniformly ellipsis.
suppose they are discontinuous. Is there any?
Then you have to go to the viscosity and things like that. Then you won't get
The
classical.
problem is, I think these ints will be, because of this, we will get this to be some holder. And then use a non-DC.
If they are also,
then this issues are there. Then whatever inside that whole int
Right.
will be holder. Then one can
see if you look at the, now look at the, your answer would be, suppose they are,
Basically, I'm looking at what is the.
if you are taking the T, X, U, etc. Remember, if I assume uniform ellipsis here, then this infimum is also a continuous function. Holder is enough. I am saying that if it is the inside is also okay, Helder continuous or ellipsis continuous, as the case may be, because U is a compact metric space. This infimum U is over U is a compact metric space, and therefore you can use the parabolic regularity repeatedly. But if you do not have this continuity, etc., then the parabolic regularity, that iterative parabolic regularity will not come. So that is at the base of this non-degenerate.
What I'm saying, this is if you look at from the hydrodynamics point of view, there is no phase in it. When you introduce a discontinuity at some surface, then we get two-phase flow problems. Hamiltonian becomes discontinuous. So that's what I'm asking.
Then you have to go to the viscosity sense. In this classical sense, you won't get it. I mean, if you want to make it a classical, then you have to take the limit and appropriately go.
It's uniformly elliptic.
Because you get also some entropy, I mean, reversing fields. Even in
Anyway, so continuing the story, this infimum will always be a minimum because U is compact and everything is continuous, and therefore it will be attained at some U star which will depend on Tx, and then you can prove that I can select a measurable version thereof. So this U star of Tx is the optimal control. Suppose U star is such that this is true. Now you look at the left hand side, this is called the inside, this part is called the Hamiltonian. Now take the pointwise infimum for each Tx, take the pointwise infimum of the Hamiltonian. Now if U is a compact metric space, then this minimum will be the infimum will be achieved. Even if suppose I can, if U is not compact, if the infimum becomes a minimum, any condition that allows you the infimum to be equal to minimum, suppose the minimum exists, the infimum equal to minimum, compactness will guarantee you, but if you do not have compactness also, infimum is a minimum, then you can prove that this is going to be an optimal control, U star of Tx.
So you can always have a selection. Huh?
You can always have a selection. No, you do not. No need of convexity. You can prove that.
So what is the condition on the U, capital U? So the
I mean, on U, I am giving the condition here that U is compact. To get a measurable selector,
you will always get a selection.
I will always get a selector. But the point is that there is a measurable selection theorem. There are many people who have proved it. But my contention is that suppose you can get a measurable selector like this, even if U is non-compact and you end up in I will do a detail of a problem that if you get a measurable selector, then it works. Compactness is a sufficient condition to guarantee a measurable selector, but not necessary. In non-compact situations also, if there is a measurable selector, then that U star is going to be an optimal.
For example, if U is in Rn and U is a convex set, you can always.
Exactly, I will do that now, LQG problem. And remember, this is a Markov control. This is a Markov control. So this is an optimum, but it is not unique, it is not necessarily, because you can have this infimum may be achieved at several points, each one of them will be optimal. So there may be many optimal controls. So to do, so that was an infinite dimensional optimization problem. We are reducing it to this. For each Tx, make this static optimization. For each Tx, this is just a static optimization problem. Solve that static optimization problem, get that U star will be an optimal control problem for the dynamic problem. So whole dynamic problem is reduced to pointwise minimum of the Hamiltonian. So that's the whole thing is an infinite dimensional problem, dynamic problem is reduced to a static problem. So that is the Hamilton-Jacobi theory in physics, and then it has developed with Bellman and others into this form. Now let's solve one problem.
If I understand, so first you take the selector, U star, then come back to the parabolic and solve it.
No. You first solve the parabolic. First you solve the parabolic and then go for the selector. First solve the parabolic, and you know that the unique solution is going to be the value function. That is why I have not written phi there. Now I am writing V, because I know that V is unique. The value function is the unique solution of that parabolic equation. Now I am minimizing, and that I am claiming to be an optimal control. Now let me quickly solve. This is one of the most important problem where things can be done. Now if I had time, I would have done some finance also, but let me do with the famous LQG problem. In LQG problem, linear systems, quadratic cost, Gaussian noise. The noise has to be Gaussian. So the structure will be like this. Dx of t will be some matrix ft times xt plus Fgt times ut this dt plus sigma t tw. So here is the system. I have a linear system. This is called a linear system where f and g are appropriate matrices and ut takes values in some Euclidean space, some other Euclidean space. So if suppose the whole thing is in Rd, ut may be in some Rm. So it's not a compact metric space, it's a non-compact situation. So this part is what is called the linear system. Now the linear system is perturbed by this noise. Here is no x here. This is sigma t and it's a non-degenerate. That means sigma a of t is sigma t sigma star of t. This is greater than some epsilon I. Greater than means the difference is positive definite. And I assume that these matrices f, g and sigma are continuous. All these are continuous. Now to make life simpler, since I want to calculate, I am taking the one dimensional case. Let us take the one dimensional case, then things will be much easier. And what is the cost here? The cost is 0 to t expected value qt of x square of t plus rt of u square of t dt plus s of x square of t. So this is the cost that I want to minimize. So my v of tx, the value function is basically the infimum over all control u e to t, this quantity this is the value function. So this is a linear system with quadratic cost. This is one of the most important problems in engineering. Now let us write down the since it is a one dimensional case, okay. Multidimensional case is exactly the same as one dimensional case, you have to write in the vector notation. So let us write down the case, this equation. So this will be del v over del t plus infimum then plus half sigma square of t del 2 v over del x square plus infimum with respect to u b is fx plus ft of x plus gt of u times del v over del x plus qt of x square plus rt of u square. That is it, right? That is equal to 0 and v capital Tx is equal to Sx square. This is HJB, right? Have I written it correct? Yeah. This is HJB. So I can erase this part. Now I have to make some assumption. The first assumptions that we will make, the first assumptions that we are making is this f, g, sigma, q, r are all continuous functions. Further, I will assume that this r q is non-negative definite, R is positive definite, S is non-negative definite. These assumptions will be made, and it has a physical interpretation also. If you look at the cost, this represents, see, as I see xt, this xt is typically the deviation from a desired trajectory. So this has to be some kind of a norm. So your qt is the weighting factor, the weight factor. So this is this, and this is the effort, this is the control effort, and this is the terminal cost. So these are all have physical interpretation, and physical interpretation tells you that the control effort has to be always positive, then this has to be non-negative, this has to be non-negative, and mathematically that will be needed also. This has a very good physical interpretation, and this is a very useful thing which is used quite extensively. Infimum over some Rm, not u dot, no, you, infimum over some R. I am taking the scalar case, so everything is R. Yes.
Basically, the Lercher transform.
Yeah, that kind of a thing, but it's far simpler than that. Now what I will do is, I will simplify this equation. Because this u is in R, now I am taking the scalar case, so u is in R, then I can minimize it, right? So the minimum will be attained at what? If I differentiate the Hamiltonian, what do I get? GT of u, GT of u del v over del x, right? Del v over del x plus 2 RT of u equal to 0. This is where the minimum will be attained, right? Therefore, this gives me u will be a function of t, obviously. Let's call this as u star. U star of t, I am calling it as, this will come to minus 1 over 2 RT minus 2 RT. Here I can write GT del v over del x. Is that correct? Right? This is correct. So this is my u star, and you can clearly see that this is going to be a minimum, and RT has to be this positive, otherwise I can't divide it by RT. In matrix notation you will get inverse, etc., etc. Now let's plug there. If I plug there and simplify the equation, then this will be dv over dt plus half sigma square of t del 2 v over del x square plus ftx plus now I will have to, where is the mistake?
So gt into dv by dx plus twice of r plus q into u.
No. Why? This is
Yeah, u goes away.
u. U is not there.
And instead of rt, you get rt plus qt.
The q should not come.
Oh, that is extra. Fine.
But here there is no mistake.
No, that's correct.
That's correct. That's fine. That's correct. So infimum over u, let's write it down. Or should I have done the calculation last night. Can I use that? It will save some time.
Basically, the Lercher transform.
Let me save some time by, I have done the calculation. So this is u anyway, you can remember that. So let me write down the equation. The equation will become del V over del T plus half sigma square of T del 2V over del X square plus Ftx del V over del X minus 1 over 4 G square of T over RT del V over del X square plus Qtx square equal to 0 and V capital T of X is Sx square. So this is the HJB now. This is my HJB. From that HJB I have simplified. So if this is my star, after simplification and taking the infimum, this becomes the HJB equation. Now what I do is I go for a trial solution. My trial solution is I expect this to have a quadratic solution. That is my trial solution. So my trial solution is Vt of x is some kt x square plus qt. I am not taking a x term here, and if you see, even if you take the x term, nothing is going to change. Okay, even if you take plus RT times x, you will find that after simplification RT will become equal to 0 by the structure of this. So let's start with kt of x square plus qt. Now plug in there. This is a trial solution anyway. If it doesn't work, we will do something else, but it will work. Del v over del t will be equal to k dot of t x square plus q dot of t del v over del x is 2 kt x square and del 2v over del x square equal to 2 kt. Right? Now plug in here. So if I plug all these things, then I get k dot of t x square plus q dot of t plus sigma square of t kt plus 2 kt ft x square minus g square of t over rt k square of t x square plus qt of x square equal to 0 together with k of t x square plus q of t equal to s of x square. This is the boundary term. So now we can equate the x square terms and make it to 0 and equate the scalar term and make it equal to 0. So if you see, if I had taken here plus RT and x, there is no x term here, so RT will be automatically 0. So there is no point in taking a linear, the first order term. That's why I said x square terms and qt. Now let's further simplify. So take x square terms and equate it to 0. So what are the x square terms? X square terms are k dot of t plus 2 kt ft ft minus g square of t over rt k square of t plus qt equal to 0 and k of capital T is S. This is an ODE. This ODE is called Riccati equation. This ODE is called Riccati equation. You can solve this ODE. It is a nonlinear ODE, but you can show that this has a unique solution, provided S is non-negative. If S is non-negative, you can find, in fact, the higher dimensional is much more interesting. If S is non-negative definite, then you can prove that K will be symmetric non-negative definite, and many properties of K can be proved. It's a very interesting ODE. Higher dimension, it becomes more and more interesting. So this is called the Riccati equation. Now once you solve the Riccati equation, you come to now the second term, equate the constants to be equal to 0. So then q dot of t is q dot of t plus sigma square of t kt equal to 0 and q of t is equal to 0. So this is another ODE. This ODE can immediately be solved because I have already solved for kt. I have already solved and got the unique solution of the Riccati equation, and q of t becomes equal to, how much it becomes equal to? T to t sigma square s ks ts, right? Now what is the optimal control? Optimal control is u star, that u star of t, the optimal control is minus kt over rtx. This is the optimal control. Now the optimal control is a feedback control, it's a Markov control. It's just not only a feedback, it's a linear feedback. This is what is called a linear feedback. Linear feedback control. So linear feedback control is very easy to implement. How do you implement this? So if you are really implementing it, you have a computer with you, right? You have a computer with you, and in that computer program you have a subroutine which is called the Riccati solver. If you know all these things, then see, this does not depend on x, so you can solve this. So there is something called a Riccati solver. So you just take the Riccati solver, take the solution of the Riccati equation. This x is something that is coming to you, right? Your actual control is u star of t is kt over rt xt. Little k, no, this is a capital K. This K?
The other one, sorry.
This one?
No, the K.
Less Q. 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 No. That's I want to come to that point next. Doesn't come in the feedback. That's a very interesting observation, and it's a very important observation. So I want to write it down. What is my? So that's a very important observation that doesn't come in the feedback. So remember, what is our equation is dxt equal to ft ft plus gt qt this dt plus sigma t dwt, right? This is, so if you see, if I didn't have this part, the Riccati equation wouldn't change, right? Riccati equation does not involve sigma. So if I have a linear system with quadratic cost without a noise, my Riccati equation is the same. My Riccati equation is exactly the same. And if Riccati equation is exactly the same, my linear feedback control is exactly of the same type. The only difference comes to the value of x in the linear system, linear deterministic system, x will be deterministic. In the linear system with Gaussian noise, x will be a stochastic process. In any case, it is observable. So whatever you observe, you do this, right? And q is this. Now what is the value of the, what is the value? Vt of x is kt of x square t plus qt. So the value depends on qt. The value depends on qt, but the optimal control does not depend on qt. Therefore, if you are really solving a linear system with quadratic cost and Gaussian noise, then you don't have to really worry about the Gaussian noise. Observe the state and implement as if you don't care about noise. Noise will come only if you are interested in the value. But if you have the optimal control, you know, another small computer program will give you the value anyway. So this equation is, from a practical point of view, is redundant. We don't need to even know what sigma is. So if Gaussian noise is a good noise for your model, then you don't need to worry about the noise at all. The structure of the optimal controller doesn't change. It remains the same. That's the beauty of, you know. So the real systems are not linear. Okay. On the other hand, linear equation can be solved in a beautiful manner. So what we do is, whenever we have an nonlinear system, we linearize it, and if the linearization is the first order approximation is reasonably good, then apply this. So it's frequently applied. The real situation is, of course, not this. The real situation is like this. The real situation is slightly different. The real situation is, this is most of the time unobservable. Unobservable. This is not observed. What is observed is dyt. Dyt equal to ht of xt dt plus some sigma 1t dw1t, where again sigma 1t, that is a1t, equal to sigma 1t sigma star of t is uniformly positive definite, and W1 is another Brownian motion independent of the original Brownian motion. So this is called the signal, and this is called the observation or measurement. This is called the observation process or the measurement. Now your cost is the same. Cost is the same quadratic cost, but you can't know the cost because the cost involves xt. Cost involves xt and xt is not observable. Then what you do is, you find, using this observation, get the regular conditional, suppose pi of t is the regular conditional law of xt given fyt. That means, using the observation, using the observation estimate x. Phi t is the regular conditional law of xt given fyt. Then the beauty of this is that pi t satisfies this kind of a stochastic differential equation. Then pi t satisfies a similar finite dimensional SDE. Finite dimensional is the most important point. Point to note is that it will also be a linear system like this with a quadratic cost. And so therefore, if I have this kind of a situation, this is obtained by what is called Kalman filter. This is called Kalman filter. With using Kalman filter, Kalman filter is one of the rare filters. Kalman filter happens to be a finite dimensional linear system, and the cost remains quadratic. Yeah.
When you say unobservable means only partial information.
Partial information. So maybe some of the components cannot be measured.
Depends on the matrix what you are using H over there, right?
Yeah. So this is known. These are known.
Yeah, right. So only that much information is available for
Yeah.
the second equation, then try to recover all the information.
Try to recover all the information of xt. That's what I said. Pi t is the regular conditional law of xt given ft. That's the best estimate. Okay, the best least square estimate. And what happens if you have studied probability, you know that when there is something called best estimate. Suppose y is known and you want to estimate x based on y, then expectation of x given y is the best, but it may be nonlinear. But then what you go for is, since nonlinear is very difficult to get, what you do is you write x as ay plus b. Then you can calculate a and b in terms of the covariances and so on, right? That is called the least linear estimate. Now the least linear estimate may not be as good as the least square estimate. But if x and y happens to be jointly Gaussian, then the least linear estimate and the least square estimate are the same. So therefore, the linear estimate becomes the best estimate. And here what I am assuming is that this Wt and this W1t, remember xt is going to be Gaussian. Under a linear feedback, you can solve this stochastic differential equation and you can see that it's Gaussian distribution. Here, this is, I am adding a non-trivial just additive noise, there is no x or y here. So this is, the y is also will be Gaussian distribution, and since I am assuming that these two are independent of each other, and therefore x and y is going to be jointly Gaussian, and if they are jointly Gaussian, then the least estimate, the least square estimate is going to be least linear estimate. Then that is why the Kalman filter is linear and finite dimensional. This is the crux of the fact is that if you have two random variables x and y, if they are jointly Gaussian, then the least square estimate of x given y coincides with the least linear estimate. And here, therefore, the Kalman filter is going to be a finite dimensional linear system which can be solved. And therefore everything etc. can be done, and this is used in a day-to-day life. If you are watching your television, remember somebody is doing this, somebody is doing Kalman filter. From the satellite the signals are coming, getting corrupted in the process, and there is a Kalman filter in your, in your every TV that you have, it has a filter, and this algorithm is, I didn't go give the algorithm, these algorithms are done. But there are many problems. For example, this is a part of the model, right? So sigma t is generally unknown, sigma 1t will be unknown. Generally sigma t will be unknown, sigma 1t will also be unknown. In practice these are unknown. So what do? These are called adaptive filtering problem, right? So you have to make the best choice of this. Then the statistics will come into picture. You have to do MLE and various other kind of thing to do many things. So in general, this is really a practical problem. It's used on a day-to-day life. Knowing these things and fitting appropriate what is called the tuning of the filter. Tuning of the filter is, you go to ISRO and you will see the people are struggling with appropriate tuning of the filter. How you tune the filter. Every day they come out with some algorithm which does better than some other algorithm. So tuning of the filter is a very, very important issue. There are many other issues involved in it. And as I said, I have done only the risk neutral case. Risk sensitive case, similar problem. There are many, many issues involved and things have not been done. So though it's a fairly matured subject, still there are many, many problems in this area. Now I have 5 minutes left. If you have questions, I will answer. Yeah.
Sorry, in the beginning when you described the DSE, that's the dynamics. You put when the control is not my fault, you put
control is
not my fault, it depends on all the components. You put the delay check on the flip, and not in the diffusion coefficient, because you wanted to use in some sense to use an offset estimation. But for example, do you know some results when the mass coefficient is delayed?
For instance, if you take any problem in finance, okay, portfolio, then the control will come in here also the control will come, right? Now if the control comes, you can use the dynamic programming heuristics and get the HJB equation. Now as I said, if the HJB equation has a nice solution, then the dynamic programming is redundant. You are using dynamic programming heuristic to just look at the HJB equation. If you can solve the HJB equation, so in most of the cases in finance, what they happen is they have control here also, and therefore the theory that I did does not capture that. But then what they do is they go to the HJB equation and treat that HJB equation separately. In many cases, if you are dealing with some problem like finance, you have to solve it. So they give a structure such that it can be solved. Once you can solve it, whatever I did for LQG goes for finance also. So if you look at the papers by Mettens and subsequently many other papers, finance, every time you model it, control will come here as well. But fortunately, HJB equation can be solved. Yeah?
Because if you want, for example, in terms of applications, if you want to do another input noise, for example, in your presentation, everything is concerned about the regularity of the PD, right? That is associated to the problem. But do you think it's possible to do the same with the Levy noise, since the PD will be a partial integral differential equation, and you have some type of regularity for the HJB?
So yeah, for example, as I said, if this is a linear system, this is of this type, and x, these two are independent, then my estimate is going to be this pi t will also satisfy a similar equation. There will be one more Riccati. But suppose you have something like this. And dyt is let's say, let's not put it anything here, this. So this is your signal and this is your observation. This is your observation. Now you have to write pi t equal to regular conditional law of xt given fyt. Suppose this is the case, then this is not going to be an equation of this type.
Probably, I think he's asking a different question. You said this W dash also a linear process, right? But even W dash can be a Levy process or something.
Oh, Levy process, yeah, Levy process, yeah. There are some work of recent origin.
Because what I'm curious is that your presentation presents regularity PD. You have C2 regularity in order to use these.
No, if you have, for example, Levy means basically, Levy process means your noise is driven by a Poisson random measure.
Right,
Then filtering, people have just started working on it. There are some results. If you are interested, you can see 1 or 2 papers by Meter and his collaborator, SK Meter and his collaborator. They are doing filtering with respect to Poisson random measure. It's a far more complicated problem, but people have started working on it.
Just to figure out, it uses results as PDEs too, because the
It will not, it won't come as PDE, it will become integro differential operator,
but you have some.
not PDE. So it will be partial integro differential operator. So things are more complicated because the partial integro differential operators are not local. So all the local regularity results that we are using will not work. So you have to do something different.
If you have alpha stable process.
Huh?
If you have alpha stable process, sometimes
You can do. Alpha stable doesn't mean, of course, that the noise is Poisson, but noise is something else. You can do, there are results. For stable processes, there is filtering. But Poisson random measure means Levy processes with partial observation is a more difficult problem. Then, I mean, even as I said here itself, both continuous, this will be governed by a stochastic PDE. And the optimal control problem, even in this continuous case, is an open problem. It has not been solved. It's still an open. So I suppose the Levy will be even harder. And all the problem that I described, if you formulate it, even for Wiener for linear filter it's known, but nonlinear it's still open, and for Levy it will be an order of magnitude more difficult. I have not seen that. Okay, thank you. References. Okay, let me do some self advertisement.